am what they call empathic, and I didn't understand this at the time. I feel people's energy. So especially when I start to connect with a soul, they'll make me feel the bond that they shared with someone, but then they'll make me feel how they died. So if they died tragically, I'll taste blood. Sometimes it's all like if someone had an aneurysm or they had a bleed out. If they couldn't communicate, if they had a tube down their throat, I'll feel like someone's restricting my throat. And it's just for like a split second, but I've learned to understand what that was. So imagine feeling all of those things and not knowing what it was. And I was afraid of everything. I couldn't leave my house at this point.
I also went through, in my senior year, I lost my high school sweetheart to a drunk driver. So I dealt with death at a very young age. And he was kind of my plan. Like, I was kind of like, okay, he was an artist, a musician. He was going places, and I was just going to go with him. And I was just going to figure it out as I go. And then all of a sudden, January of my senior year, I lose him. And it was like I lost everything. I lost my direction. I lost my future. I lost, your first love, like all of that. And I experienced pain and all these other emotions. So literally graduated high school, kind of, I don't want to say with a chip on my shoulder, but with sadness.
And in Kealakekua Bay, the dolphins come and they love to swim with humans, right? And so we used to go swimming with them. The local community would tell me, oh yeah, dolphins can hear everything you think. They're psychic and so on. And then at one point, I was, after like a few months of swimming with them almost every day, I was thinking, wow, I befriended this young dolphin, and we used to go, swim, twirling and jumping and all this.
We went to this camp, and somehow or another, I had developed this really, really bad, what I came to see later on, migraine headache. And I was so shy, I didn't even tell the teachers that I was so sick. And I remember we were in these huts and we all were put to bed. And of course, the moment you lay down with a migraine headache, it's even worse than ever, right? And I felt so ill, but still too afraid to tell anybody. And so I just walked out of the hut. I can't even believe I did this, but it was night and I walked out of the hut and down the little steps, and this camp was by the ocean, and I stood on this cliff edge.
Feeling good, reaching for more, and just listening to the mantras and chanting the mantras. When out of nowhere, I felt this presence of a baby in the back seat. It felt like a baby in a car seat behind me. And I started crying because it felt so real to me. I felt so real that I started being deeply moved by that experience. And then I heard this inner voice say to me, this voice of your intuition, inspiration, loud and clear, your baby's coming in March. And it was so loud and authoritative.
Goosebumps.
I know, it was just like in my face. I was like, okay, March, here comes the baby in March. The baby's coming in March. And so I started, really getting heady about like, oh, the baby's coming in March. And I started getting back on the timeline. And so the second I saw that happen, I just said, okay, universe, you take this. That doesn't work. Show me a sign that this baby's coming in March. And I want the sign to be lilies. I just chose that sign.
Yeah, I can conjure it. I don't do it a lot, but ever since I was very little, I don't know what the term would be. I do have a capacity to hear messages or connect with people who aren't in the body, or I have to be careful though. So I think it's being an empath. So 30% of people are highly sensitive. And then of that 20 to 30%, 4% of them are empaths. And some of them are medium type empaths. Some of them are animal empaths, plant empaths, and they're linked to the intelligences. So you asked about my capacity, and it's really, I think it's a gift. It's scary sometimes to be picking up so much information no matter what. And that's one of the stresses. Cortisol for the reintegration into this new normal is the idea of like, wow, okay, I have to pace myself. And, I just pick up on so much information that I just have to prepare myself for hiding in bathrooms again.
Sometimes my personality changes a little bit. Like when I'm in New Orleans,
Oh, yeah.
First time I was there, I was fine. I was standing on a street corner. You can see this beam of light coming like right through me. And I felt like it was protection. And I was fine. Went back another time. I was actually pushed during a live show by a soul. And one of my the stuff was flying off of their cameras, the lights, the batteries. Oh yeah, like right in front of thousands of people. You can't even make this up.
Was like energy
It was
ricocheting?
energy. It was energy. Something going on in those theaters down there. I mean, and he tripped. And I'm like, you were pushed. I watched it. And he's like, oh, I didn't push. I tripped. I'm like, there was nothing for you to trip on. Like, he was like so fighting that spirit was doing this. And I'm like, no, I'm telling you, they're just messing with us.
It's really interesting because Bear plays a really big role in spirituality before he was gone. Bear was really deep. He was like, there's something more than just what the Bible tells you. You know, he talked about feeling, and he just knew this. But he did open up my eyes to that world. And then when I lost him, that's when I really started to see signs. And I started to go to spiritual healers, and I was talking to angel readers, and I started to really dive into this world. And I'll tell you, the first time I went, a woman reached out to me and said, this person keeps showing me a bear and he wants me to speak to you. Yeah. And this woman, like, I was like, I'm so sorry, but I don't believe this stuff.
So I would go down with her and then twirl back up and all this. But she would never, ever bump against me or touch me or anything. And if I tried to touch her, she would move her body exactly
Really?
the same distance.
Why
you know?
is that?
And I didn't know. And so I was thinking as I was swimming with her at one point, why don't they touch us? And then I thought maybe I didn't give her permission to touch me. So I thought in my head, I give you permission to touch me. And then she just rubbed all over me, like in that instant. And so the reason I was telling you this story is that when you realize, oh, maybe I'm in a neural network of the universe and I'm actually interacting with it, and actually these inner thoughts and this inner dialogue I'm having is actually a dialogue with the whole.
Can I tell you a memory that maybe only you two would know? Would you come speak to me? And I'm not kidding you. She told me about this time. I'll never forget it. The Diamondbacks won the World Series. So I was in high school. Yeah, it was our senior year. And Bear and I like hopped this fence. It was this house downtown. No one was living there. And we watched the fireworks show from the backyard. We didn't tell anyone. It's like, as a kid, you don't go tell people that. She told me it. And I was like, okay, I'm going to listen now. Like, I had goosebumps. I immediately just started bawling my eyes out. And I'll tell you, this woman, I can't find her. I wish I could. Her name was Trisha. She opened my eyes at 18 years old to spirituality, but to this whole world. And I started making vision boards. I started to manifest. I started to do all these things. And people at my age, like, they thought it was crazy, but this woman really opened up my eyes to really, like, Bear leaves you feathers everywhere. Still to this day, I'll think about him, and I'm not kidding. A feather will fall out of the sky onto my children or onto me, or I was at a bookstore, pulled a book out, and I'm flipping through a book. There was a feather in a book.
A week later, I get a letter in the mail from a reader. And in the letter was a little prayer card. And on the back of the prayer card was a picture of Archangel Gabriel, who is typically depicted holding lilies. So on the back of the card that he sent me, he said, I don't know why, but I felt that you needed this. Then early March rolls around and I wasn't pregnant. And so I was devastated because here I was like, the universe doesn't have my back. What's going on? And I walked into my husband's office. I was hysterically crying. I'm like, when is this going to happen? I really thought it was coming. I thought it was now. What's happening? And we just sat there and he held me. And all of a sudden, the phone that was sitting on the desk, my phone, started playing a song.
All of a sudden.
Out of nowhere. And you know when you think like, oh, my phone's doing something weird, so you like go to turn it off. But I looked at the phone, and as I went to try to turn it off, I heard the lyrics of the song, and the lyrics were, way go Lily, way go Lily, way go Lily. Wow. Then I looked closer, and the album title, the song is called Way Go Lily, repeating the word Lily over and over again. And the album title is I See the Sign. Can't make it up.
Can't make it up.
These guys are laughing.
Wow.
And I said, in my 12 or 10-year-old way, if there is a God, please take away this headache right now. And not only did the headache dissolve instantly, but the most incredible joy and ecstasy and love swept all through me. And I had tears pouring down my face. And from that moment on, I always knew.
This is what I felt as you asked me this question. So I always feel like when I talk about my gift, it's always guided by spirit. Mm-hmm. Maybe there's someone on this call. Maybe it's for someone listening right now that will find healing in this. What I saw was a young male step forward, and he showed me my symbol 4 where he wanted to take responsibility for his departure. Mm-hmm. I did taste something and I saw a medicine bottle. That's my symbol 4 where they took something or mixed medications without knowing that caused or attributed to their departure. I find that a lot of times souls that leave the physical world tragically unexpected, they tend to step forward more so.
Okay.
Because we then beat ourselves up with maybe a survivor's guilt. My first thing to people is just pay attention, just be open to what goes on around you. Anything that reminds you of your loved one, I don't care what it is, and you think of them at that moment, know that that's them with you at this moment and you're not alone. I think that's the biggest thing. Don't say, oh, Mom, I know it's you if I see 4 red cardinals by Sunday. You can't do that. It's like, then once you start to get that, then like take baby steps. If you have a hard time meditating, just take it to a minute a day, just concentrating on your breathing for 1 minute. Then try 3 minutes. That's what I did. My mind is always full of chatter, and I worked up, and I don't put so much pressure on with it. Some people can meditate for hours. I can only do 10 minutes at a time. That's what works for me. I think we put pressure and we think things connecting with our loved ones has to be this, or it should be this, or it should feel like this. It's a simple thing of sometimes I smell cigarette smoke. I know it's my dad's mom. I know it's her. Sometimes I smell my grandfather's cologne. I know he's with me. I smell gardenias. I know my grandmother is with me. For a split second,